Shalom, beloveds of the King. Praise Abba Yahuwah. Here we are again coming together in order for us to be able to read our book of Yeshayahu, the prophet Isaiah, as we are truly unfolding a prophet that I stand in awe, because it's like I said, this prophet is the very prophet that carries the name of Yah saves. That Yah is the one who's going to deliver. Yah is the one who saves. And so therefore, this is the very prophet that is going to reveal to us our Messiah. And this is everything. The more I study this book, the more I understand that Yeshayahu is truly about Yahuwah saves, Yahuwah delivers, and how Yahuwah reveals the one whom he's going to send to save, to deliver. And you know, I stand in awe. I truly stand in awe how it is that the Jewish rabbis can read through the book of Yeshayahu, and yet they cannot see their Messiah. Truly, we can see eyes that are blind, ears that are deaf, because they have hardened their hearts and they will not receive their Messiah. But there will come a day when the fullness of the Gentiles that has come in, Abba Yahuwah is going to do a mighty work, and he's going to open their eyes, and they are going to weep, and they will look upon the one whom they have pierced, and they will weep, and they will come in. So I praise Abba for that. So today we are going to have a look at Isaiah chapter 11. And this is such a deep chapter that we're actually going to split it into two chapters, into two sessions, because chapter 12 is very short. So what I'm going to do is, so that we are able to get the fullness of what Abba wants to reveal to us in chapter 11, because it's very deep, because we need to understand Abba Yahuwah is revealing to us this stump, this root, and we need to understand, he's coming as a banner, and he's coming to gather his lost tribes. So here again, in this chapter, we are going to look at a pattern. And so for us not to rush through the pattern, we lay a foundation so that we may be able to build on there, because it's like I said to you, Father is really opening up to us the understanding of where we understand his heart, of where he's coming from, and of how he is revealing the Messiah to us through our prophet, through Yeshayahu, and therefore he's bringing everything together for us to understand his plan. Because you know what? The Father is never going to declare judgment. The Father is never going to declare destruction without having a plan of redemption. Because at the end of the day, this book from Genesis to Revelation is talking about a redemption plan. It's talking about the fact that this is the way, from the time man fell in the Garden of Eden, he has put in place a redemption plan. And when we really start to understand his pattern, then we really start to understand the Father's heart and what he's busy with. So let us pray. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you, Father. I thank you for the richness of your word. I thank you, Father, for the deep work that you are doing in our lives, and where you are opening up our eyes, opening up our ears, and where you are taking us deeper to understand that we're not just reading a Bible for the sake of gathering information. We are reading a Bible to understand your heart. We are reading a Bible not because we want to get a new revelation, but we are reading your Bible to be able to understand your instructions, your basic instructions, before we go in to leave this earth. And so that is why we've looked at your foundation in looking at Genesis. We've come into Exodus, and we are looking at Revelation. And now we're looking at the prophets. And Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you for Yeshayahu. I thank you for this mighty prophet, Father. A prophet who truly has had such insight. An insight to be able to reveal Messiah, Yahushua, to us. A prophet who has really had insight in being able to see past, present, and future. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you that you have given us your word as a guideline, as a light, to be able to come and reveal to us those hidden things that are there that we are not able to understand. And this is why you are now opening up your scriptures to us so that we may be able to have a deeper understanding of your heart and of your ways, so that we may be part of the greater plan that you are busy with in this hour. And so I praise and I thank you for this time. Will you open up our eyes, open up our hearts, so that we may receive the revelation that you want to give us today. I pray all of this in the name of Yahushua, our Messiah. I praise and I thank you for this in Yahushua's name. Amen. So praise Abba Father. So we are going to go deep in just being able to understand just verse 1. Because in just verse 1, everything is summed up in verse 1. And so when we understand verse 1, we can understand Father's plan. We can understand what Father has done. And it's to be able to open up the scriptures to us for us to be able to understand that who is the speaking about. And that's why I say, I just stand in awe, because it's so sad. You know, it's so sad that his own people will harden their hearts to not want to receive the one who came to set the captives free, the one who came as their deliverer. And so we are going to read from Yeshayahu, chapter 11, verse 1. And a rod shall come forth from the stump of Yeshai, and a sprout from his roots shall be faithful. Wow. Just in that verse itself, it gives us volumes. It gives us a whole teaching on just that one verse. And so when we have a look at that word rod, this word rod, really at the end of the day, we are understanding it's the word a shoot. It's the word branch. So there is a shoot that is going to come forth. There is a stump that is going to come forth. And so we see this, if we are going to read Matthew chapter 1. So we're going to read Matthew chapter 1. Let's go to Matthew chapter 1, verse 5 to 6, and it says, And Salmon brought forth Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz brought forth Obed by Ruth, and Obed brought forth Yeshai. And Yeshai brought forth David, the sovereign, and David, the sovereign, brought forth Shlomo by Uriah's wife. And so at the end of the day, we must understand that, this is the genealogy that is going to come forth. That's from Joseph, the husband of Miriam. And so we see this genealogy where Yeshayahu brought forth David. And that is why Messiah Yahushua comes from the line of Yehudah, that comes from the line of David. And so he's telling us that it's from the roots. So we have a look and we see that he speaks and he says, from the stump of Yeshai, of Jesse. So when we have a look at Acts, let's go have a look at Acts chapter 13. So let's look at Acts chapter 13. Acts chapter 13 from verses 22 to 23, it says, "And having removed him, he raised up from them David, a sovereign, to whom also he gave witness and said, I have found David the son of Yeshai, a man after my own heart, who shall do all my desires." So wow, at the end of the day, this is why the Father really loved David. Because what was it that he said? I have found David the son of Yeshai, a man after my own heart. So a lot of people, they stop at the fact that they say he was a man after the Father's heart. But listen to what he says. Who shall do all my desires? Take a note of that. Who shall do all my desires? So at the end of the day, he was obedient to the Father. And yes, he was not perfect. And so we must understand that at the end of the day, there are many of us that are not perfect. We stumble and we fall and we make mistakes. And David stumbled and he fell and he made mistakes. But his heart was to be faithful and to do everything that the Father desired of him, even when it cost him in his flesh. So even when it was difficult for him, can you imagine when he was standing there? Here is his enemy, King Saul, standing, and is right there next to him. And David can kill the king, but instead he cuts the edge of his garment. And at that very moment, he could have killed him. But he didn't stand against the king because he knew that at the end of the day, the Father was the one that was going to deal with King Saul and not him. And so many times when he went to go stand before Goliath, he was being led by the Father. And so that's why I say David was not perfect. And so we must understand we stumble and we fall because our flesh, man, is weak. And we strive to do what is right in the eyes of the Father, but we're always going to fall when it comes to the works of the flesh. But yet, as long as he sees that our heart is willing to do exactly what David did, who shall do all my desires. Now listen, verse 23. From this one seed, according to the promise, Allah raised up for Israel a Savior, Yahushua. So understand, he doesn't say, Abba Yahuwah raised up for Judah. No, Abba Yahuwah raised up for Israel a servant, Yahushua. So he was going to be the Messiah over the 12 tribes of the house of Israel. Because when Israel was given the name Israel, he was Yaakov. But his name was changed to Israel, one who wrestles and overcomes, one who will rule with El, one who will overcome with El. And this is what we're going to see in terms of what we're going to understand in this chapter today. And so we continue to look at this. So at the end of the day, what is the Father going to want to reveal to us from Isaiah chapter 11? So that we start in the beginning, lay the foundation, because this very verse, there is a foundation in this verse that's going to cover the rest of the verse. And so we need to understand what is the foundation. So the rod, the shoot. So you see, there is a root. So it says, and the rod shall come forth from the stump of Yeshai, and a sprout. So there will be a sprout from his root. So there is a root, and there will be a sprout that will become a stump. And then from there, it shall be fruitful. It will bear branches and it will bear fruit. So let's have a look at this. So the rod, the shoot, the branch, the stub of Yeshai. We have a look at Romans chapter 11 verses 16. So let's go look at Romans chapter 11 verses 16 so that we can lay a foundation in terms of what the Father is wanting to reveal to us, in terms of when we come to the rest of chapter 11, because chapter 11 is very significant because it is a chapter where the Father is looking at, there's going to come a root that's going to come forth, and He's going to raise up and He's going to rule with a rod of iron, and He is going to be a banner over a house. So when we look at Romans chapter 11, let's read from verse 16. And now if the first fruit is set apart, the lump is also. And if the root is set apart, so are the branches. So that is very important. If the first fruit is set apart, so who was the first fruit? Yeshua was the first fruit. He is the stump. He is the lump. The lump is also. And if the root is set apart, so are the branches. So therefore, who is the root? Who is the stump? Who are the branches? This is what we need to understand. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, have been grafted in among them, and came to share the roots and fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches. And if you boast, remember, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. So understand, the root is the one who's going to bear the branches. So at the end of the day, the branches cannot sap of their own. The branches need to come to the original root, because they got to drink from the root. They got to drink from the foundation that has been laid from the beginning. So we are going to understand the root is the foundation, and then there is a tree, and then there's going to be branches, and then there's going to be fruit. And so you shall say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Good. By unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by belief. Do not be arrogant, but fear. So understand, the Israelites, were branches. There was an original root. They were in a covenant. We are going to understand this. They are part of the tree, which is part of the house, which was part of the house of Israel. And the branches have been broken off so that wild branches may be grafted in. Now, why are these wild branches going to become arrogant and filled with pride? Because they're sapping from the root. For Elohim did not spare the natural branches, He might not spare you either. So then, the kindness and sharpness of Elohim on those who fell sharpness, and towards you kindness. If you continue in His kindness, otherwise you also shall be cut off. So understand, we are a branch that has been grafted in, but let us not become prideful and arrogant to say, well, we are the chosen people and they are not the chosen people. We are part of our house, and the chosen people are those that are part of a covenant that will continue to walk in a covenant. And this is what we must understand. And they also, if they do not now listen to what he says, and they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, shall be grafted in. From Elohim is able to graft them in again. So if they come and they have faith, and they accept the Messiah, they too are going to be grafted in. They too are going to be, they were cut off, but they will be grafted back in. For if you are cut off of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, who are natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree. So understand, if the Father is the one who cut them off because of their rebellion and because of their unbelief. But if they come and they come back to the faith and they come back to the belief and they receive Messiah Yeshua, they too are grafted in. For I do not wish you to be ignorant of the secret, brothers, lest you should be wise in your own estimation, that hardening in part has come over Israel until the completeness of the nations, the completeness of the fullness of the Gentiles, of the nations, of those that have been in the dispersion, of those that are now not part of a covenant, has come in. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it has been written, the deliverer shall come out of Zion, and he shall turn away wickedness from Yaakov, and this is my covenant with them, when I take away their sins. So praise Abba Yahuwah. So we must understand, truly, as regards the good news, they are enemies for your sake, but concerning the choice, they are beloved for the sake of the fathers. So verse 32 says, for Eloah has shut them all up to disobedience in order to have compassion on all. So you understand, Father is the one who blinded their eyes, but Father is the one who's going to open their eyes when the time is right for them to be able to come in. And so we must understand that verse 16 of Romans chapter 11 is very important to understand. If the first fruit is set apart, the lump is also. And if the root is set apart, so are the branches. So we going to have a look at this. In Exodus chapter 3, verses 6, and we're not going to go there, but in Exodus chapter 3, verses 6, because this is something that the Father has been speaking throughout the word throughout Genesis. And by the time we get to Exodus chapter 3, when the Father is going to reveal himself to Moshe, what does he say? Abba speaks to Moshe and says, I am the Eloah of Abraham, the Eloah of Yitzhak, and the Eloah of Yaakov. So he is the Eloah of Abraham, because he made a covenant with Abraham. According to Genesis chapter 15, the covenant was made, the Father made the covenant. It had nothing to do with Abraham. Father is the one who cut covenant, so he's the one who sets the stage and lays the foundation of the covenant. So Abraham is the foundational covenant that Father makes with Abraham. So when we look at the Father makes covenant with Abraham, so the root of this tree is the Father. He made the covenant with Abraham. That is the foundation. That is the roots. The roots are the Father. We got a sap from the root. The root comes everything from what the Father has given us. And then he turns around and he says, he's the Eloah of Abraham. So Abba Yahuwah is the root. So when we have a look at Isaiah, let's go back to Yeshayahu, and it says, and come forth from the stump of Yeshai, and the sprout from his roots. So at the end of the day, the root is the Father. Then we have a look and we see, and he is the Yah of Yitzhak. Yitzhak is symbolic of the son. So there's the father, Abraham. Then he has a son, Isaac. Isaac is representative of, symbolic of Yeshua the son. He's the stump. So he's the shoot that comes forth from the root. So the root is the foundational covenant that was given with Abraham, with Isaac, that is going to symbolize the son. Abraham symbolizing the father. Isaac symbolizing the son. And then there's going to be, so Yahushua is the stump that comes forth from the root, who is Yahuwah. The sprout from the root is Yahushua, the stump, but the branches from the sprout will be fruitful, because it says, from the root and shall be fruitful. The rod, the branch, the stump. So if we have a look and we see, the rod is the branch, which is the stump. It's the sprout that's come forth. That word is the word netzar. Netzar. So what does netzar mean? It means sprout. It means shoot. It means branch. So he's the original stump. He's the original lump that's come forth. He's the original shoot that's come forth. That's netzar. And then natsar. So if we go to the root word, natsar. Natsar means to guard, to watch over, to keep, to preserve. So at the end of the day, Father brought a natsar. He's netzer, that is the branch, that is the stump, that is the rod, and that is the stump, which is the sprout, which is the shoot. That's netzar. But it comes from the root, because he's going to come as the one that is going to guard us, the one that's going to watch over us, the one that's going to keep us, the one that's going to preserve us. That is the one that is going to preserve and keep what? The branches. And who are the branches? The branches are the house of Israel, the Yah of Yaakov. So he is the Yah of Abraham, representing Abba Yahuwah. He is the Yah of Isaac, representing the son, Yahushua. That is the sprout. That's the shoot that's going to come out from the root. And then it's going to formulate branches. The branches were going to be the house of Yaakov. And that is the house of Israel, which is the 12 tribes of Israel. So from the beginning, Abba wanted a tree that would represent him and his kingdom. So from the beginning, Father wanted us to go and eat from the tree of life. And the tree of life was going to be a tree that is going to represent his kingdom. And so at the end of the day, it's going to have roots, it's going to have a stump, and then it's going to have branches. And then these branches have got to produce fruit. So at the end of the day, the house of Israel has to produce fruit. And what is the fruit it's going to produce? And that's why we're going to look and see what does Yahushua come to do. Because whatever Yahushua comes to do, that is the fruit that the branches need to produce. And so understand, what is the Father trying to explain to us? I have brought a shoot, netzar, and I am going to natsar, guard, watch over, keep, to preserve these branches, because that's going to be my house, and I'm going to preserve them. And so, from the beginning, Abba wanted a tree that would represent him and his kingdom. Yahushua is representing Yitzhak, the son, the shoot, the stump, the trunk, the netzar, the foundation, the cornerstone, the one from whom we sap. Yaakov is representing the house where he says, I am the Yah of Yaakov. It's the house, the branches, and they are the Natzarim. So he's the Netzar, and we are the Netzarim. So when people ask you, what are you? We are the Netzarim. We are the branches that come from the Netzar, that comes from the sprout, that comes from the shoot, that comes from the very stump that's come forth. So that's who we are. We are Netzarim. So we are branches. We are part of the house that is going that's come out of Yeshua. So we must understand that these wild branches have been grafted in. But at the end of the day, we must understand that these branches that has had to be grafted in, what has had to happen to Yaakov? You see, Yaakov was known as deceiver. Yaakov was known as one that was a deceiver. His name meant supplanter. It meant deceiver. And he had to wrestle with the angel. Who was the angel? Yahushua. And then Yahushua came to change his name. And his name was no longer Yaakov, but his name became Yisrael. And Yisrael means one who will strive with El, one who will rule with El, one who will overcome with El. So do you understand? So we, as the wild branches, we have had to wrestle to come out of our deception, to come out of that place where we've been deceived, where we have been in deception, deceived through the doctrines of demons that we've been taught. And now we have received Yeshua, who needs to come and give us a new identity, because he is the one that is the Natsar. He's the one that wants to guard us. He's the one that wants to watch over us. He's the one that wants to preserve us. He's the one who wants to keep us. He's the one who is the one whom we will follow. He's the one that is the cornerstone, the one who is our foundation, the one from whom we will sap. And so in Revelation chapter 5 verses 5, we see that he is the Lion of the tribe of Yehudah, the root of David, the one who overcame, the one who is worthy to open the scrolls and to loosen its 7 seals. So at the end of the day, this very root, this very stump is the one that has been given all the authority. The one who comes from the root of David. The one who is going to be able to loosen the seals. And so therefore, he's bringing the judgments. So now we are either going to be able to be grafted into him and allowing him to be the one to lead and guide us so that he may guard us and watch over us, keep us and preserve us in the destruction of what's coming, or else we're going to receive the destruction that is going to come upon the earth. So then we have a look at Isaiah chapter 11 verses 2. And so Isaiah chapter 11 verses 2 turns around and it says, the Spirit of Yahuwah shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of Yahuwah. So, if we're going to have a look at this, for us to be able to understand a little bit deeper what it is that the Father is trying to show us over here, because we have to look and see he is made up of the 7 candlestick menorah. In the book of Revelation, it keeps speaking about the 7 candlestick menorah. What does the 7 candlestick menorah represent? The 7 candlestick menorah represents the light. Yeshua became the light of the world that was beaten of pure gold to be able to hold the oil, because it's that lamp that is going to carry the oil that needs to bring the light. So Yeshua was beaten to receive the light, to be able to be the light bearer of the 7 spirits of Yahuwah. That is the one that is leading and guiding us in these 7 spirits. And so this is when it says we are to worship him in spirit and in truth. So we look at this where it starts and it says the Spirit of Yahuwah shall rest upon him. So the Spirit of Yahuwah is the Ruach of Yahuwah. And this is H7307, which is the Ruach. That is why people are not open. You see, we must understand, people are not open to the Ruach because they have not received the full flow. And so what happens is, many people operate with an intellectual, soul reasoning mind. It's the knowledge, but not spirit-led. So many people operate through the soul man, through the soul realm. And you know, just this morning, someone sent me a scripture that made absolute sense, because if you have a look at 1 Corinthians, I mean, this is what Paul spoke. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, let's have a look at 1 Corinthians chapter 2. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, from 3 to 5, it says, "And I was with you in weakness and in fear, and much trembling, and my words and my preaching were not with persuasive words of man. They were not with persuasive words of man's wisdom, but in the demonstration of the Ruach and of power, in order that your belief should not be in the wisdom of men, but in the power of Eloah." So understand, when the word of Yahuwah is being preached with spirit and power, it brings the fear of Yahuwah upon a person to turn them from their wicked ways back to the Father. So you see, it's not a word that comes out of knowledge, out of the knowledge that we obtain because of the knowledge that we have. And it's not from man's reasoning mind. It doesn't come from the reasoning mind of man. It comes with the power and the authority that comes from the Ruach of Yahuwah. It's demonstrated with the spirit and power, in order that your belief should not be in the wisdom of men. So a lot of people operate by the reasoning mind of man's intellect, mind, will, emotions, but in power. Yet we speak wisdom among those who are perfect, and not the wisdom of this age, nor of the rulers of this age that are being brought to naught. But we speak the wisdom of Eloah, which was hidden in secret, and which Eloah ordained before the ages for our esteem. So you see, if we are going to be able to be those that are going to be led by the Ruach of Yahuwah. So what does this mean? It means that there's got to be a flow, and not that comes from the intellectual man, from the soul of man, from the soul realm that is made up of the mind and the will and the emotions. And there's many people that operate more from their soul man than they operate by the Ruach of Yahuwah. And so what does the Ruach of Yahuwah, what does it say? It says it is the wind, it is the breath, it is the mind of Yahuwah, it is the spirit of Yahuwah, as an inspiring, ecstatic state of prophecy. So it brings prophecy, it brings the prophetic utterances of the mouth of Yahuwah, as impelling prophet to utter instructions or warning. So therefore the Ruach of Yahuwah is the Ruach of Yahuwah that is going to be able to bring utterances that are going to bring instructions and warnings. So it's to instruct the people, it's to warn the people. The Ruach of Yahuwah is the imparting warlike energy and executive and administrative power, as endowing men with various gifts, as an energy of life, as manifested in the glory So these will be the people that will walk in the manifest glory of the Father. And so this is what we see as the Ruach of Yahuwah, where the Ruach of Yahuwah is the one who's going to be able to work it in you, both to will and to do his good pleasure. So therefore, he's got to speak the instructions of the Father, the ways of the Father, the utterances that come from the Father's heart, to be able to bring you to a place of where you can come in line with his ways. Then there is the Spirit of wisdom. The Spirit of wisdom is H2451, which is Kochma. And this is wisdom, skill in war, wisdom in administration, shrewdness. It's prudence in religious things, wisdom in ethical things. And that is what we see in Daniel 1 verses 17, where Daniel was a man that was filled with the wisdom of the Father. Daniel was a man that was able to bring administrative ways where they couldn't fault him. He was a man that was an advisor. Eventually he became advisor to the king because he had that administrative gift. He operated. He was a man that was absolutely and utterly operating through the Spirit of Yahuwah. Let's have a look at Daniel 1 verses 17, and it says, "As for these 4 young men, Yahuwah gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams." So understand, he was a man that was filled with the wisdom of the Father, but he was a man that was filled with the administration. They couldn't find a fault in him, and that is why they tried to be able to bring a decree, to bring a destruction against him. If we have a look at Proverbs 3, so let's look at Proverbs chapter 3 verses 19, says, "Yahuwah founded the earth by wisdom. He established the heavens by understanding." So this is the Father's way. So the next one we look at is the Spirit of understanding, which is Bitna, H998. And that is the Spirit of understanding. Now, the Father founded the earth by wisdom. He established the heavens by understanding. And the understanding is the discernment. It is the faculty. It is personified. It is perfectly understanding wisdom. That is understanding. It's the discernment. And understand, he established the heavens by understanding. So at the end of the day, he gives us the understanding and the discernment to understand the things of the heavens, to understand his ways in the things of the heavens. The Spirit of counsel. The Spirit of counsel is H6098, Etzah. So it's like Etzah. That's the Spirit of counsel. That is where we are able to counsel. That is where we are able to give advice that comes from the Ruach of Yahuwah. That is purpose. That is the very Spirit of Yahuwah that brings the counsel. Then there is the Spirit of might. The Spirit of might is Geburah, and that is strength, might, valor, bravery, victory, mighty deeds of Yahuwah. So the people that are operating with the Spirit of might, they have this valor. They are brave. They walk in victory. They do the mighty deeds of Yahuwah in strength. There's the Spirit of knowledge. The Spirit of knowledge is H1847, which is Dahath, and that is knowledge, perception, skill, again, discernment, understanding, wisdom, a person that is cunning and aware. So a person that is cunning and they are aware. And then there is the spirit of the fear of Yahuwah, which is H3374, which is Yirah. And that is to fear, terror, fearing, in awe. Fear of Yah, it's the respect, it's reverence, it's piety, it's to revere. So you see, the church has always told us, well, we're not to fear him. We're not to fear him. And so that's why we make him our friend, because we don't fear him. Well, I tell you one thing. If you make your mother or your father your friend, you will lose all respect for your mother or your father, because your mother and your father did not come onto this earth to be your friend. They came to be your parent that disciplines you, that corrects you, that teaches you, that guides you, that leads you. And the minute you make a friend of your mother or your father, you will lose all respect. You will no longer listen to them. You will no longer fear them. You will no longer receive their instruction. You will no longer receive their correction. You will no longer fear them. And this is what the church, this is the doctrines of demons that the church has taught us. And that's why we have now been singing songs. We are a friend of God. We are a friend of God. We are a friend of God. So if we are a friend of God, we do not fear Yahuwah. Do you understand? We are called to fear him. We are called to reverence him. We are called to respect him. Now, at the end of the day, Abba turns around and he says, we are to revere, we are to honor, we are to respect our parents, understanding that they are the ones that bring us correction, they are the ones that lead us, they are the ones that will guide us, they are the ones that, it's strange, because when we become older and our parents become older, we seem to think that we can reverse the roles. It's because now we want to tell them what to do. But at the end of the day, they are still our parents. And so therefore, this is why the Father will constantly want to deal with us in the area of saying we are to honor them and we are still to fear them, and we have to revere them. And so at the end of the day, we are to respect them. And so this is why the church has lost the fear of Yahuwah. The church has lost the fear of Yahuwah because we no longer respect him. We no longer revere him. We no longer fear him. There is a terror. The fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom. That is why the church has no wisdom, because we don't have a terror of him. We are to understand that how many times he speaks in this word to say, if you don't do my commands, if you don't do this, then the judgments will come upon you. But now the church has taught us that he's our friend. It's just love. He loves us. So because he loves us, nothing's going to happen to us. No, because he loves us, he will reprove us and he will discipline us. And this is what we do not understand. So Proverbs 9 verses 10. So this is the biggest problem that we have. People don't have wisdom that is tied to understanding, because it says in Proverbs 9 verse 10, the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So it's all tied to fearing him, which is love and respect. This is the love and the respect that we have for him. And it's all tied in with us fearing him. Now it's so interesting, because these 7 spirits ends with fear. And listen to verse 3. And shall make him breathe in the fear of Yahuwah. So the fear of Yahuwah was breathed into Yahushua. So it says, so the spirit of Yahuwah shall rest upon him, the one who is the shoot, the one who is the stump, and he is the one who is the netzar. He's the sprout, he's the shoot, he's the branch. And he shall make him, and shall make him, Yahushua, breathe in the fear of Yahuwah. So understand, out of all these 7 spirits, what was breathed into him? The fear of Yahuwah. And shall make him breathe in the fear of Yahuwah. And he shall not judge by the sight of his eyes, nor decide by the hearing of his ears. So you see, Yahushua is not going to judge just by what he sees, just by what he hears. What is he going to judge by? He's going to judge by the righteousness. He shall judge the poor, and he shall decide with straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and slay the wrong with the breath of his lips. So, what does he mean? So at the end of the day, he but shall judge with righteousness. So we must understand he's going to judge by righteousness. And what is the righteousness? We have looked at righteousness so many times. The righteousness is the observing divine laws, upright, virtuous, keeping the commands of Yahuwah, and innocent, faultless, whose way of thinking and feeling and acting is wholly conformed to the will of Yahuwah, being innocent and set apart. This is what Yahushua fulfilled. If he leads us, then we will walk as he walked. And so this is why he's judging according to righteousness. So at the end of the day, if this is in the root, if this is in the stump, then this is going to be what the branches were responsible for. This is what sapped into the branches, and this is the fruit that we are to bear. So we follow him in righteousness. He shall judge the poor and shall decide with straightness. What is straightness? This word straightness comes from the root word yashar, which is H3474. Yashar, to be right, to be just, to be lawful, to be right, to be straightforward, to be upright. So you see, he will judge in straightforwardness. He's going to speak straight. And this is why I say, Yahushua speaks straight. And so his prophets are called to speak straight. They're going to speak it the way it is. And he is lawful. He is just. He is right. He is upright. So he's going to judge in straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and slay the wrong with the breath of his lips. So the straightness, so he shall decide with straightness for the meek ones. What are the meek ones? What is the meekness? What is the meek ones? That is the word anav. And anav is H6035. And that is the poor. So he's going to be just, lawful, upright, straightforward. He's going to be right for the meek ones, for those who are poor, for those who are humble, for those who are weak, for those that have been afflicted, for those that are lowly, for those that have been oppressed, for those that have been afflicted, for those that are bowed down, for those that are downcast, for those that are lowly, for those that are meek and poor. That is who he's going to be able to judge in righteousness. He's shall decide with straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and slay the wrong with the breath of his lips. So he is going to be able to, and so we must understand, he talks about he will decide with straightness for the meek ones. So who are the meek ones? Matthew chapter 5 verses 5 says, blessed are the meek, because they shall inherit the earth. So who is going to inherit the earth? Who is going to inherit the earth? Those that are meek, those that are humble and weak and poor and afflicted and lowly and oppressed and afflicted and bowed down and downcast and lowly. They are the meek and the poor. And they are the ones that the Father says in Isaiah chapter 5 verse 5, the meek shall inherit the earth. So if we have a look at Revelation chapter 19 verses 13 to 16, let's have a look at Revelation chapter 19 verses 13 to 16, and it says, and having been dressed in a robe dripped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahuwah. So you see, he's going to judge through the Word, because his name is the Word of Yahuwah, because he's the light that came upon the earth. So he's the light that is operating through the 7 spirits of Yahuwah, and he's walking in spirit and in truth. And the armies of the heavens, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses, and out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, and with it he should smite the nations, and he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron, and he treads the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of El Shaddai. So he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron, and he treads the winepress. And so with his mouth goes a sharp sword, and with it he shall smite the nations. So the sharp sword coming out of his mouth is the word that's going to cut, because it's the word of truth that's going to come forth, that's going to smite them. And he treads the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of El Shaddai, and on his robe and on his thigh he has a name written, Sovereign of Sovereigns and Master of Masters. And so 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verses 8, we're not going to turn there, but it says, Yahushua will destroy the lawless one with the spirit of his mouth. So he's going to destroy the lawless one with the spirit of his mouth. And so we have seen that Yah is the foundation of us understanding that this tree must bear the fruit of righteousness, the fruit of straightness. We are called to be the meek ones. We are called to be able to walk as he walked. And so we will look at the part 2, and in part 2, we are going to look at part 2 of Isaiah chapter 11, where we're then going to be able to look at the fact that he says he's going to, he's going to girdle his loins with righteousness, with trustworthiness. So we will look at all of this in part 2, and we will see that he's a banner. And so praise Abba Yahuwah for his love and his grace and his mercy, and how he's taking us to truly understand our Messiah in all its fullness, and to truly understand how the Father has revealed Messiah to us already in the prophets, so that we may understand he is, Abba Yahuwah is the root, Yahushua is the stump. He is the one that is the stump that is coming forth. And then there is the branches, which is the house, and we got a call to bear fruit. So let us bear fruit for Abba Yahuwah. We will look at this more in detail in part 2. May Abba bless you all. Shalom, shalom.